Blue Origin is becoming a less trusted company with every passing day in the space industry. Whenever they make headlines, it's rarely for their achievements, but almost always about technical problems and launch delays. They've practically lost all the trust from the public at this point, because every time they promise a launch for their much-anticipated New Glenn rocket, they end up delaying it. The latest delay was just 2 days ago, leaving everyone skeptical about whether this rocket will ever actually fly. And now, as usual, they've set yet another launch date for New Glenn, a date that's already hard to take seriously given their track record. In this video, we'll dive into the new launch date, what went wrong this time, and whether there's any hope left for Blue Origin to turn things around. Before we delve any deeper, please make sure to subscribe to our channel for updates on this and other future developments. On January 13, 2025, Blue Origin's much-anticipated launch of its New Glenn rocket was called off yet again. This was supposed to be a pivotal moment for the company, showcasing its long-delayed heavy-lift vehicle. Instead, it turned into yet another example of Blue Origin failing to meet expectations. The rocket, which had already been rescheduled multiple times, saw its initial January 8th launch date pushed to January 10th, then January 12th, and ultimately to January 13th before yet another failure to launch. The constant delays painted a picture of a company struggling to deliver. Blue Origin, a company that has often talked big about revolutionizing space travel, once again showed that it is good at making promises, but not so good at keeping them. Leading up to the launch, the company was unusually confident. They posted on X, saying, "We know landing the booster on our first try offshore in the Atlantic is ambitious, but we're going for it. No matter what happens, we'll learn, refine, and apply that knowledge to our next launch." The statement, while acknowledging the risks, sounded like an attempt to lower expectations, perhaps a hedge against the inevitable failure. The events leading up to the scrubbed launch followed a predictable pattern for Blue Origin. The countdown proceeded without major issues at first, creating a sense of hope. But as the clock ticked closer to liftoff, problems began to surface. Blue Origin's live feed suddenly announced a hold due to anomalies detected in the rocket's systems. It was a vague explanation, the kind of technical jargon companies use when they don't want to admit something went seriously wrong. Ultimately, the team called off the launch entirely, citing issues that couldn't be resolved within the launch window. Afterward, Blue Origin released another carefully worded statement saying, "We're standing down on today's launch attempt to troubleshoot a vehicle subsystem issue that will take us beyond our launch window." They promised to analyze the problem and reschedule. However, this kind of language has become all too familiar from a company that has repeatedly failed to deliver on its timelines. Further details revealed that the delay was caused by ice formation in a purge line for an auxiliary power unit, a critical component for the rocket's hydraulics. This points to a lack of thorough testing and preparation, raising serious questions about Blue Origin's ability to handle complex missions. If they can't get these basics right, how do they expect to compete in an industry where margins for error are razor thin? The New Glenn rocket, which Blue Origin has been touting for years, is supposed to be a game-changer. The rocket's reusable booster, powered by 7 BE-4 engines, is supposed to land on a barge in the Atlantic. However, the fact that the company is already downplaying expectations for this landing suggests they're not confident in their own technology. Jeff Bezos, Blue Origin's founder, tried to frame the delays as part of the learning process. In an interview, he admitted, "Clearly, on a first flight, you could have an anomaly at any mission phase, so anything could happen." While this may be true, it doesn't excuse the fact that Blue Origin is years behind schedule on delivering a working vehicle. Blue Origin has announced a new launch date for its New Glenn rocket, now targeting January 16, 2025, with a launch window starting at 1 a.m. A launch window refers to the specific time during which a rocket can launch to ensure its payload reaches the intended orbit. This timing depends on factors like the Earth's rotation, the position of the payload's target, and mission requirements. Missing the window can mean delaying the launch entirely, or risking mission failure. The first launch window for New Glenn, originally set for earlier dates, closed without a successful launch. Now, Blue Origin must secure the new launch window, which is not just a matter of scheduling, but also requires approvals from regulatory authorities like the Federal Aviation Administration. To proceed, Blue Origin must comply with all FAA requirements, including detailed flight safety analyses and reviews of the rocket systems. They've reiterated their commitment to safety and mission assurance, but that's just another way of saying, we don't know when this rocket will actually fly. What's ironic is that both Blue Origin's New Glenn and SpaceX's Starship were unveiled around the same time. Yet, despite this supposed simplicity, New Glenn hasn't even left the launch pad, while Starship, with all its complexity, has completed 6 test flights and is making significant strides toward operational use. New Glenn, at 320 feet tall, is a partially reusable rocket designed primarily for placing satellites in orbit and supporting commercial payloads. Its first stage, powered by 7 BE-4 engines, was intended to land on a barge in the Atlantic Ocean after launch, a challenging but relatively standard task in the industry now. By comparison, Starship, at 394 feet tall, is fully reusable and built to perform missions far beyond Earth's orbit, including transporting cargo and humans to Mars. Starship's Super Heavy booster uses 33 Raptor engines, making it far more complex and difficult to design, build, and operate than New Glenn. Despite these differences, SpaceX has managed to overcome the immense technical challenges of Starship. The rocket's 5th test flight was a particularly striking example of SpaceX's progress. In October 2024, Starship shocked the industry when it not only launched successfully, but also saw its Super Heavy booster caught midair by the Mechazilla launch tower arms. Meanwhile, New Glenn, which doesn't even attempt such advanced recovery techniques, has yet to achieve a single launch, let alone demonstrate its reuse capabilities. Blue Origin had every reason to make faster progress. New Glenn's design is far less ambitious. It doesn't involve complex in-orbit refueling systems or interplanetary mission requirements. Its first stage, while reusable, relies on established landing techniques similar to what SpaceX mastered years ago with Falcon 9. And yet, the company has struggled with repeated delays, citing technical issues and logistical challenges. For instance, the latest postponement caused by ice formation in a purge line for an auxiliary power unit highlights how even basic systems have proven to be stumbling blocks for Blue Origin. By contrast, SpaceX has pushed through challenges with remarkable speed. After Starship's first flight in April 2023, which ended in an explosive failure shortly after launch, the company implemented rapid iterations. Each subsequent flight improved on the previous one, with the 6th test flight in November 2024, demonstrating Starship's ability to reignite its engines in space and perform a controlled landing in the Indian Ocean. That's all for today's video. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.